Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I am back with some more Search for Truth. We are once again diving into what President Trump's agenda is. What exactly is contained in Agenda 47? A lot of people want to know, and we are checking it out. We are going through video by video. We're doing about 5 at a time, so we can keep it in a nice, manageable chunk. We are going through and seeing exactly what the once and future President of the United States has to say about what he wants to do when he gets into office. This is not a secondhand account. This is the words from the man himself. I forgot to plug in my headphones and put them on, so 1 second and we will go with Agenda 47, no welfare for illegal aliens. Let me get this going, biggerize it, and transfer.
Crooked Joe Biden is running a non-stop conveyor belt importing illegal aliens from all over the world into
Truth.
our country, and the
They're flying them in from other countries. That's wild.
Biden Department of Homeland Security is abusing its so-called parole authority to give them more governmental benefits than many law-abiding citizens, including our vets. Our vets are being taken advantage of.
There are several reports, anecdotal of course, but there are reports of benefits being paid that are significantly higher than the Social Security maximums for the people who paid into the Social Security system for the entirety of their life. It is higher than the retirement benefits, and that is wild. Higher than the veteran retirement benefits, and that's pretty wild too.
Our citizens are being taken advantage of. It's very unfair, and it's not going to stand. Under this horrendous abuse of power, millions of illegals will be eligible for billions and billions of dollars in welfare benefits, courtesy of you, the American taxpayer. So not only is Crooked Joe surrendering your borders and your sovereignty, he is stealing your hard-earned money to redistribute it to people who have no business being in our country. They should be in their country. This is not sustainable by anybody, certainly not sustainable by us. The United States is trillions of dollars in debt, yet the radical left Democrats are illegally dispensing public benefits to illegals while they try to massively raise your taxes. The radical left communists hate you, and they hate our middle class. Under Biden's scheme, the benefits that will go to illegal aliens include food stamps, free health care, welfare checks, and a host of other programs, the likes of which you would not even believe. In addition, Biden is also giving illegal aliens work permits to take jobs away from American citizens. And then if they have children, not only do the children get automatic citizenship, but they unlock a trove of additional government benefits flowing to illegal immigrant households. In the meantime, our vets suffer and our citizens suffer. On day one of my new administration, we will shut down this travesty and defend the wealth of hardworking middle-class families. I will stop the outrageous abuse of parole authority. I will reinstate my action making illegals ineligible for public housing. We will terminate all work permits for illegal aliens, and I will demand that Congress send me a bill blocking any future president from abusing his power to distribute welfare benefits in this manner. It's all
such a tyrant. I swear, these tyrants and refusing power and limiting the scope of their own office, that is insane. Like, I cannot believe we're letting these tyrants into power when all they try to do is give power back to the people. That doesn't make any sense.
Being paid for by the American taxpayer. Like automatic citizenship for children of illegal aliens, welfare is a gigantic magnet drawing people from all over the world. They want to come to the United States. They want to feast off the sweat and savings of the American taxpayer.
True.
It's not fair. It's not just. We're not going to let it happen. I will end it all immediately. Thank you.
All right. So, you heard it from his own mouth. Now, there's a good bit there that I absolutely agree with. If we don't have a border, we don't have a country. It really is that simple for me. If we're not enforcing our laws, we don't have a country. It really is that simple for me. Are there laws that we need to revisit? Yes, absolutely. We need to revisit the marijuana laws at a minimum. There are a multitude of things, but that one thing would change the entire trajectory of a multitude of people. And it's something that we absolutely need to do. But we need to enforce laws. If you people break the laws, they need to pay the consequences. Wild concept, I know, but I believe that. As someone who was once a criminal, right? I never claimed to be some perfect saint who never did anything wrong. I have done plenty wrong, and if I would have been caught, I was perfectly willing to pay the consequences of my actions. I haven't taken any actions of that nature in over 20 years, so it's whatever. I'm well past the statute of limitations on anything that I did. Regardless, we need to get control of our border. Stop the illegal activity. Quit having slave trade at a minimum happening without our knowledge across our border at a minimum. I've expounded in other places, and I'm sure I will again on my plan to do that. I want to do that. Birthright citizenship, we talked about that before, but if you don't have at least one citizen parent, then you should not be a citizen. It's that simple. And naturalized citizens are citizens. So if you have one naturalized parent, then that's a whole different ballgame too. We should not, however, have two people who are not citizens have birth here and then their child is a citizen. That is insane. That is no way to run a country. No borders, no country. No walls, no country. We need to get back to taking care of our country, and that is definitely going to involve us enforcing our borders. Next up, we are going to be checking out Agenda 47, the American Academy. Let me start it, bigorize it, and transfer it. You did not
In
bigorize.
recent weeks, Americans have been horrified to see students and faculty at Harvard and other once respected universities expressing support for the savages and jihadists who attacked Israel.
There you go.
We spend more money on higher
No uncertain
education than
terms.
any other country, and yet they're turning our students into communists and terrorists and sympathizers of
That is the plan. That is literally the plan.
many, many different dimensions. We can't let this happen. It's time to offer something dramatically different. Under the plan I'm announcing today, we will take the billions and billions of dollars that we will collect by taxing, fining, and suing excessively large private university endowments, and we will then use that money to endow a new institution called the American Academy. Its mission will be to make a truly world-class education available to every American, free of charge, and do it without adding a single dime to the federal debt. This institution will gather an entire universe of the highest quality educational content covering the full spectrum of human knowledge and skills, and make that material available to every American citizen online for free. Whether you want lectures or ancient histories or an introduction to financial accounting or training in a skilled trade, the goal will be to deliver it and get it done properly. Using study groups, mentors, industry partnerships, and the latest breakthrough in computing, this will be a truly top-tier education option for the people. It will be strictly non-political, and there will be no wokeness or jihadism allowed. None of that's going to be allowed. Most importantly, the American Academy will compete directly with the existing and very costly four-year university system by granting students degree credentials that the U.S. government and all federal contractors will henceforth recognize. The Academy will award the full and complete equivalent of a bachelor's degree. In addition, to help the 40 million Americans who have some college education but no degree, the American Academy will grant credit for past coursework at legacy institutions and give you the chance to complete your education at the American Academy for free and much more quickly than is now possible or available. This will be a revolution in higher education and will provide life-changing opportunities for tens of millions of our citizens. Enjoy it, learn from it, and thank you.
All right. I didn't interrupt that one a whole lot because I'm probably going to have a good bit to say about that one. People who've been here for a while, didn't just stumble on the channel today, know that we have the goal to help to educate. I believe that education is one of the keys to prosperity that we as a country have been lacking for the last 40 or 50 years. We have turned those keys over to the federal government in the hopes that they would do the right thing. And as usual, when you get too large of a system, it gets to breaking down. And so we need to return it back to the states in a very real way, back to the localities in a very real way, and still hold standards of education where we're not teaching people things that are simply untrue, right? Nobody needs to learn that there's a flat earth, right? You can learn that people believe that, but you shouldn't be learning that there is one. There are a multitude of things that are like that, and politicization comes into that a little bit more than it should. There are things that are scientifically provable that you are not allowed to know right now. I can't even tell you about them. I just can't. But if you go onto my page here on YouTube, there are channels linked that do tell you about them scientifically. I can't. There are things that are being held back from you, and it is largely due to the four-year institutions and the fact that if you get off track, then you don't get funding. That is a very real thing, and if you don't believe that it is, you are naive. I am fully on board with getting education to as many people as possible. The more people know, the better off we all are, and that goes for a broad spectrum of topics, right? It's not just workplace, but in your home life, the more you know, the better off you are. In your spiritual life, the more you know, the better off you are. The more you know, the better off you are. Education should be a goal and not something that we laugh at. A lot of our education problem is cultural, right? It is making fun of the people who learn. That is a problem that we have to work on somehow. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know that anybody has the answer to that, but that is another one of those keys to prosperity. If we don't have an education, we can't be prosperous. And if we can't identify our own problems and work on them, we've got a whole different problem. I am fully on board with the onlining of education. I have learned a multitude of things from that. Like I learned to be a blacksmith from that. I learned to do 3D modeling from the internet. I learned to video edit and do the rudimentary sound that I can do from the internet. The things that I have learned from the internet have helped me immensely, and not just here, but in other places. I've learned things in psychology that have helped me. I've learned things in spirituality that have helped me, and those are linked in the corner above. All right, that's enough of me. Let's get back to him. This is President Trump's message to America's auto workers. Let's get that a little bit bigger and transition.
What's happening to our auto workers is an absolute disgrace and an outrage beyond belief. Auto workers are getting totally ripped off by crooked Joe Biden and also their horrendous leadership, because these people are allowing our country to do these electric vehicles that very few people want. And it's a mandate. So you'll ultimately be forced to drive in a car that goes for an hour and then you have to have it recharged. I hope you don't want to go very far
The goal is to have you not have a car. That is the goal.
away. Biden has imposed the outlandish requirement that 67% of all new vehicles must be electric in less than 10 years. That means Michigan and places that make cars, you can forget about it. You better get your union working because you can forget about it. Those cars are all going to be made in China. According to the UAW president himself, one auto company CEO used the word brutality over 40 times in a single conversation to describe Joe Biden. I call him Crooked Joe because he's the most corrupt president in history. He's also the most incompetent. But Joe Biden's cruel and foolish electric vehicle mandate, that's how bad this policy is. Your union heads know it, but the union bosses don't want to do anything about it because they're not leaders. But you know who's voting for me? The people in the union. Yeah, the union heads and the Crooked Joe keep using the phrase fair transition. There's no fair transition. First of all, people don't want the electric car, and the ones that want it should get it. But we want to have all forms of transportation and
let the market decide.
Motorization to describe this unnecessary forced transition to electric vehicles. But there's no such thing as fair transition that destroys over 100,000 auto manufacturing jobs. It'll be much more than that. Wastes tens of billions of dollars that should be going to the workers and makes new cars entirely unaffordable. for the middle class. That's a transition to hell. You're going to hell, and your bosses are leading you right down the tubes. You shouldn't pay your fees. They get these big fees from all of their workers, and it doesn't matter how bad they are, they'll endorse a Democrat, even though the Democrat's selling you down the tubes. Both the UAW bosses and the big three auto executives should be screaming at the top of their lungs. They should be ashamed of themselves, demanding that Joe Biden cancel his brutal electric vehicle mandate before it destroys the entire U.S. auto sector. If the union bosses and the CEOs refuse to fight back against crooked Joe Biden by forcing him to repeal this disastrous electric car scheme, then you will know they're not pro-worker, they're not on your side, they've got some deals going for themselves. And I'm telling you, you shouldn't pay those dues. You should not pay your dues because they're selling you to hell. You're going to be going to hell. You're not going to have any jobs. All those cars are going to be made in China. Every one of them. You can forget it, Michigan. You can forget it.
Tell them.
South Carolina. You can forget it, everybody.
Texas,
all of those cars are
Mississippi.
going to be made in China. We sit on liquid gold, and we're getting rid of combustion engines. And they sit on all of the other materials that you need for the batteries. They're going to make all those cars. We're not going to make any of them.
Bet.
So to every auto worker, I stand in total solidarity with you in your fight against Joe Biden's job-killing Green New Deal insanity. It's insanity.
Insanity.
When I am your president, I will deliver higher wages for auto workers. I will protect your jobs. I will end Joe Biden's catastrophic electric vehicle mandate. And by the way, if you want an electric car, you're going to get it. But you're going to be able to get all other types of cars, types of vehicles that you want. And on day one, you're going to be back in business with me, and those factories are going to start opening up again. Remember, when I got elected, I told you all about this in the campaign. And when I got elected, hardly a car company built outside of this country. I stopped it. They didn't go to Mexico anymore. I said, if you go to Mexico, I'm putting a big tariff.
No lies detected.
You're going to have a 25% tariff.
No
lies.
lies.
Send that car back into the United States. I stopped it. Well, right now they're doing it again, worse than ever before. We lost 32% of our industry to Mexico prior to my getting there, and we lost almost nothing. Nothing. In fact, we were taking back our industry, but now it's going again. I'll straighten it out. But you have to vote for Trump. You have to vote for Trump. You can't listen to these union guys that get paid a lot of money and they get wined and dined in Washington. They know that electric cars are no good in terms of our workers. So vote for Republicans, but vote for Trump. Because if we don't win this election, our country, not only in terms of auto workers, our country will go to hell. Thank you very much.
All right. And again, not a whole lot to disagree with there. There is not a whole lot that is conservationist about electric cars. If you think there is, you have not done the research into where the actual materials for these things come from. The amount of effort expended, the amount of destruction entailed in pulling the lithium alone from the ground defeats the entire purpose. The amount of lithium, the fact that the batteries go bad like really quickly, the fact that there's just not a whole lot of range. There are good reasons to use an electric car. Most of them are urban reasons for people who live in cities. Right? There is a definite benefit to having less emissions inside of New York City, inside of San Francisco. But out here in Walker, Louisiana, the average commute is 30 to 40 miles. It's not uncommon that people would commute 100 miles, 150 miles in a day. That's not at all uncommon. Just for right here where I'm at, that's not an economical use of the electric vehicle. It's just not. We get far better mileage. Do we have traffic problems? Absolutely. Is pollution bad? But honestly, it's not our cars that are causing most of the problems these days. It was back in the days when smog. I remember when back when San Francisco, like we would see the pictures all the time. They would get a smog alert. And like you would look out and you couldn't see anything. It was dangerous to breathe. And so we made changes, and those were necessary changes, and we improved those things through the market. Some of it was through regulation, but a lot of it was through the market. The market will regulate what is needed much better than the government can. If the market demands electric cars, then combustion engines will fall off. But if, however, the market demands combustion engines, electric cars are going to have to be satisfied with the niche that they fit. They do fit a niche. It is a very specific little box. Most people, here's something that most people don't realize, particularly if you live in a densely populated area. Most of the United States is still rural, like legally defined as rural. That doesn't mean that there's not a city 30 miles away, but that city is 30 miles away. And that is a very real thing for a lot of people. And if you're concentrated in the Northeast, that's a hard thing for you to understand. But down here in Booger Woods, Louisiana, it is not. Like Baton Rouge, I'm relatively close to Baton Rouge. I'm like 15 miles from the edge of Baton Rouge. But even here, we are bordering on like rural. The very next city up the interstate from me doesn't even have a diner. There's nothing there. So the concept that an electric car is good for everybody is simply untrue. And then we have the secondary problem. Our electric grid is in no way, shape, or form even remotely equipped to handle that kind of an increase in electric vehicles. It simply is not. Here in Louisiana, we have these things they call hurricanes. They happen about 5, 6, 7 years, right? 5 to 7 years, we're probably going to get a hurricane. If we get a hurricane, we're going to be without power for a while. If you're without power for a while and you have an electric car, you're in a bind. These days, everybody's got a phone. They get all their updates on the phone. If you have a combustion engine, you can drive to find gas. If you have an electric car, you cannot drive to find electricity. Right? What are you going to do? Charge the car to go? No, you're not. And maybe you can get out and maybe you can get a charge somewhere, but probably not. Even if there was infrastructure, you would have to drive a significant distance. The last major storm that hit here in Louisiana, it took out power for 300 miles? Right? 150 miles on this side of the eye and 150 miles on that side of the eye was without power. Some of us for weeks. Texas just went through Beryl. There are people still today without power. Their electric cars are doing them no good. They would be fine with a combustion engine. People are constantly bringing in gas. They can run gas pumps off of a generator. It's really hard to bring in enough generators to recharge the cars. There are a myriad of problems. Combustion engines solve most of them for now. Maybe one day we will be at the point, but we are not there now. There is, however, a concerted effort to deprive Americans of jobs, to drive us towards a communist society. I firmly hold that belief, but it is in my estimation. It is all just the speculations of my mind. It is not hard fact that there is some type of a conspiracy of some sort to enact communism and socialism here. I feel like that's true. I believe that the best way for them to affect that here in this country, because most of it is rural, is to stop people from living in rural places, and the electric cars are part of that. I think that they want us concentrated in cities, not camps, but cities, concentration cities, maybe even freedom cities, who knows? So that you're easy to control, you're easy to cut the food supply off of, and you can't charge your car, you can't get very far. And again, that is enough of me. Let's go ahead and check out the next part of Agenda 47. This is going to be President Trump's pledge to homeschool families. Let's get that a little bit bigger and transition.
As president, it was my honor to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice, remember that term. And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with homeschool education. I will also work to ensure that every homeschool family is entitled to full access to the benefits available to non-homeschool students, including participating in athletic programs, clubs, after-school activities, educational trips, and more. To every homeschool family, I will be your champion. Do not vote Democrat. They are looking to destroy you. If you don't mind my saying that, Joe Biden can't put two sentences together, and yet he's looking to destroy you. Do not vote Democrat. Do not vote for Crooked Joe. Vote for Honest Donald. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed. All right, so I'm not going to add a whole lot to that I haven't already added on another video of very much the same vein. I believe homeschool and school choice are wonderful options. I do believe we need to socialize the people who are homeschooled so that they do not turn out too weird. But homeschool, for the most part, has ensured a better education for a lot of students than the public education system gave them access to. So I am on board with that. I have already talked about that in a video that was remarkably similar to that from them already, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. Agenda 47, President Trump's 10 principles for great schools leading to great jobs. And again, I think we talked about some of this already before, but we will hit it again. Let's go.
The United States spends more money on education than any other country in the world, and yet we get the worst outcomes. We're at the bottom of every list. In total, American society pours more than $1 trillion a year into public education systems. But instead of being at the top of the list, we are literally right smack, guess what, at the bottom. Rather than indoctrinating young people with inappropriate racial, sexual, and political material, which is what we're doing now, our schools must be totally refocused to prepare our children to succeed in the world of work and in life and the world of keeping our country strong so they can grow up to be happy, prosperous, and independent citizens. We owe our children great schools that lead to great jobs.
True.
And leads to an even greater country that we're living in right now. Right now, we're living in a failing nation because of Joe Biden and these people running it. They're Marxists, they're communists. What they're doing to our country is incredible, but we'll take care of that for our children. Here are 10 key ideas that will power our movement for great schools. First, we will respect the right of parents to control the education of their children. Second, we will empower parents and local school board to hire and reward great principals and teachers, and also to fire the poor ones, the one whose performance is unsatisfactory. They will be fired. Like on The Apprentice, you're fired. Third, we will ensure our classrooms are focused not on political indoctrination, but on teaching the knowledge and skills needed to succeed. Reading, writing, math, science, arithmetic, and other truly useful subjects. Fourth, we will teach students to love their country, not to hate their country like they're taught right now. Fifth, we will support bringing back prayer to our schools. Sixth, we will achieve.
I will go ahead and add the caveat to that because I am on board with it. Like, adding prayer to schools gets a little bit iffy, right? Is it led prayer in the name of a specific God? Then that gets a little bit on the wrong side of things. Is it silent prayer? I'm a little bit on board with that. Like, that's what we did. I'm pretty sure that's gone these days. We got up, we said the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag that was in every classroom. We did, and I don't have a problem with that becoming a thing again either. And then there was a silent prayer, right? Nobody led us, but there was a silent prayer across the entire school where you did what you wanted to do. I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, if that's what they're talking about coming back, I am fine with that. If you're praying in specific names of specific deities, there is problems. There is. Then you're forcing your will on other people. Now, functions where a private citizen is asked to lead a prayer that reflects the majority of the population in the area, they can pray in specific names, and there is no problem with that. When school officials start doing it in a morning prayer, that I do have a problem with. So,
safe, secure, and drug-free, with immediate expulsion for any student who harms a teacher or another student. Seventh, we will give all parents the right to choose another school for their children if they want. It's called school choice. Eighth, we will ensure students have access to project-based learning experiences inside the classroom to help train them for meaningful work outside the classroom. Ninth, we will strive to give all students access to internships and work experiences that can set them on a path to their first job. They're going to be very, very successful. I want them to be more successful than Trump. Let them go out and be more successful. I will be the happiest person in the world. But we want our children to have a great life and be successful. And 10th, we will ensure that all schools provide excellent jobs and career counseling so that high school and college students can get a head start on jobs and careers best suited to their God-given talents. This is how we will ensure a great education for every American child. And one other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states. We want them to run the education of our children because they'll do a much better job of it.
Indeed.
You can't do worse. We spend more money per pupil by 3 times than any other nation, and yet we're absolutely at the bottom. We're one of the worst. So you can't do worse. We're going to end education coming out of Washington, D.C. We're going to close it up, all those buildings all over the place, and you have people that in many cases hate our children. We're going to send it all back to the states. Thank you very much.
all right. So, once again, I am fully on board with better education. I brag all the time about our school systems. I live in Walker, Louisiana, and Walker, Louisiana has a pilot program here at our high schools, and it allows students to graduate from high school with certifications in a lot of professional jobs. You can be an FAA licensed drone operator straight out of high school, graduate and go straight to work making $35 an hour. You can get a certification in media development where you are doing video editing, auto editing, mixing, and those things. There's a video game development program. There are auto body shop and motor repair and certifications for specific brands of cars, right? You can be a GM certified technician graduating from high school in Walker, Louisiana. And if you're a mechanic, you know what that means. You come out of this school with skills because not everybody is destined for college, and we recognize that here. Tailoring the education to the student is going to do so much more for us than trying to compete on who can get the best test scores. Now, I have invested an awful lot of my time, and I'm not going to expound on it too much, but I have reworked the MBTI system. If you don't know what Myers-Briggs type indicator is, it is a system to help. It has been used to help employers find the appropriate employees. But for the large part, it is dismissed as pseudoscience because it is largely subjective. I have done a lot of work, and I have what I feel is a more objective way to do those things. And I have changed some of the definitions and the way that things are structured. And I ask these questions, and we can pretty much narrow down the things which interest you. It's not to say that you are permanently fit into some box where only this job will interest you, but it will give you the beginning of the catalog of jobs that will interest you, because some people really like sorting things into little boxes. And some people hate those little boxes with all of their heart. And we're trying to make everybody learn to do with the boxes. We need to figure out how people think, how they get information in. They process it and give it back. I feel like I have done that. I feel like I have put in the work on that. I have a playlist devoted exclusively to the MBTI parts, and it's part of a greater system for spirituality, which brings me to the next part. We talked about not imposing your religion upon someone else, but I am also a proponent of meditation being taught in schools. That does not to say that it is any specific type of meditation, because somebody is going to get butthurt merely by the word meditation. Prayer is when you talk to God, and meditation is when God talks back to you. And it doesn't matter which deity you are praying to. That is the process, the part where you talk and the part where you shut up. Part of the part where you shut up is learning emotional regulation and how to process things in a logical manner so that you don't get so emotionally triggered. And I believe that that needs to be an integral part of our elementary education. We do not take that type of thing nearly seriously enough. We want to be quick to punish some child who does not know how to emotionally regulate for expressing the fact that they don't know how to emotionally regulate. So if we can teach them the tools that will help them to emotionally regulate beginning in kindergarten, right? How to breathe through problems, how to take the time to actually break them down, right? Instead of, well, you're in trouble because you struck Jimmy. Yes, you're in trouble because you struck Jimmy. But why? What caused this? Where's the anger stemming from? If you can start instilling this in children, then they grow into healthy adults. If we are growing healthy adults, we have a healthier society. We need to, in my opinion, take that much more seriously than we do currently. And that's where I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment, a little bit of levity, and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs on some things, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay them. I do not do it intentionally, but I do not apologize for it. I am merely relaying information that is coming to me. These are things that I have spent a lot of time thinking about. I don't sit around and watch Netflix. I don't really even play video games anymore. I spend a lot of time thinking about big issues and how we can actually solve big issues. I have plans that I could put in place for most of them. I could detail them, but it would bore you. Most people don't enjoy the things that I do. I like finding patterns. There are patterns that we can apply to our lives that can make them better. I really honestly and truly believe that. This is why I have all of these videos. If you like what I'm doing here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. Let me know you appreciate it. If you really like it, hit me with that super thanks. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you were here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. This has been Pitt State. Peace.